Have you ever heard of the wizard Pope? A man whose scientific and intellectual achievements were so grand that, according to legend, they could only be explained by a pact with the devil. And look at that, starting strong, huh? A pope dabbling in science and earning the reputation of striking a deal with the Prince of Darkness? Buckle up, this story goes far. How did a humble boy from a rural village in southern France become Pope Sylvester II, the brightest and most controversial mind of his time? And how did his accomplishments shape the destiny of medieval Europe while dark rumors tainted his legacy? Welcome to another night where mysteries never sleep. I am Midnight, and this is 7 Nights. Today, we will delve into the fascinating and enigmatic life of Gerbert d'Aurillac, a man who straddled the line between genius and the occult. Prepare to uncover the mysteries of his inventions, the legends surrounding his rise to the papacy, and the unsettling tale of his fall. Did he truly defy heaven itself? Or are these stories merely a projection of human fear of the unknown? Gerbert d'Aurillac was born around 946 in a small village in southern France. The exact details of his origins remain shrouded in mystery, but it is widely accepted that he came from a humble family. Some records suggest his father was a shepherd, though it's unclear whether he tended flocks or was a local religious leader. This ambiguity reflects the blend of simplicity and enigma that would define Gerbert's life. However, the rural environment of his upbringing certainly fueled his curiosity about the world and his desire to explore beyond the limits of his reality. From a young age, Gerbert displayed an extraordinary intelligence that caught the attention of a local abbot. Imagine this, a child so clever that even the village priest thought, "This kid is something special." That's when the wheel of destiny began to turn. He was taken to the Benedictine monastery of Aurillac, where he received a formal education that would shape his future. Like many monasteries of that era, it was a place of study and introspection, dedicated to prayer and learning. Gerbert quickly distinguished himself, demonstrating exceptional skills in reading, writing, and memorizing religious texts. His ability to learn seemed almost supernatural to his teachers, who began to view him as an extraordinary pupil. Monastic life was disciplined, guided by strict schedules and well-defined tasks. The monks alternated between prayer, manual labor, and study, following the rule of Saint Benedict, which emphasized the balance of body and spirit. Gerbert fully immersed himself in this way of life, memorizing psalms and developing an analytical mind. He became particularly interested in areas like grammar and rhetoric, the foundations of medieval education. Moreover, he had access to rare books that broadened his intellectual horizons. Despite the rigid routine, the monastery offered something the outside world could not: stability. Gerbert had access to a bed of his own, regular meals, and the chance to study without the distractions of agricultural work. While most peasants struggled to survive, he had the time and resources to nurture his intellect. This solid foundation not only prepared him for future challenges, but also shaped his worldview. He began to see learning as a way to connect with the divine, a guiding principle throughout his life. Reports suggest that Gerbert was curious and charismatic, traits that set him apart from his peers. He asked questions that challenged traditional teachings, seeking to understand the why behind rules and dogmas. This intellectual restlessness soon attracted the attention of influential figures, including the Count of Barcelona, who visited the monastery during one of his travels. The Count saw in Gerbert not just a brilliant young man, but someone with the potential to transform the world around him. This opportunity changed Gerbert's destiny. Impressed by his intellect, the Count invited him to accompany him on a journey to Muslim Spain, where he could learn from the greatest scholars of the time. This decision marked a turning point in Gerbert's life, taking him out of the isolation of the monastery and launching him into a journey that would place him at the center of medieval Europe's intellectual and spiritual debates. Gerbert's journey to Muslim Spain was a watershed moment in both his life and the intellectual history of Europe. Under Islamic rule, the Iberian Peninsula was a hub of cultural and scientific flourishing, starkly contrasting with the relative stagnation of Christian Europe. Cities like Córdoba were filled with libraries, schools, and scholars from various backgrounds, including Muslims, Jews, and Christians. For someone as thirsty for knowledge as Gerbert, this was the ideal destination. He traveled with the Count of Barcelona, who recognized the young man's potential and believed that the knowledge he gained there could strengthen Christendom. Upon arriving in Spain, Gerbert plunged into a completely new world. He encountered advanced technologies, precise scientific methods, and mathematical theories that seemed centuries ahead of what he had previously known. It was here that he learned about the abacus, a tool for quick and efficient calculations, which he later introduced to Europe. Additionally, in the Iberian Peninsula, he encountered the astrolabe, an instrument used to measure the positions of celestial bodies, a revolutionary tool for medieval Europeans. These discoveries not only expanded his mind, but also reinforced his belief that knowledge was a bridge to the divine. The texts Gerbert encountered in Spain were also crucial to his development. Islamic culture had preserved and expanded upon the works of Aristotle, Ptolemy, and other classical thinkers. He studied geometry, astronomy, and music, disciplines that would later become part of the curriculum he developed. These fields were seen as ways to understand the laws of the universe, a reflection of divine order. For Gerbert, learning was not just an intellectual pursuit, but also a spiritual one, and he absorbed these ideas with enthusiasm. However, exposure to different cultures and knowledge was not viewed positively by everyone. Many European Christians distrusted anything associated with the Islamic world, considering it heretical or dangerous. By bringing these ideas north, Gerbert would face criticism and accusations of black magic. Of course, in those days, if you came up with new ideas, people didn't say, "Wow, innovative." It was more like, "This guy's dabbling in dark arts." To his detractors, his ability to learn so quickly and introduce such advanced concepts could only be explained by some kind of supernatural pact. The dark legend of Gerbert began to take shape during this period, as people tried to reconcile his genius with the prejudices of the time. The journey also transformed Gerbert on a personal level. He began to understand that the world was far larger and more complex than the confines of his monastery in Aurillac or even his homeland in France. This experience awakened a new ambition, not just to learn but to share and transform the way Europe perceived knowledge. He didn't just want to be a scholar, but a catalyst for change. When Gerbert finally left Spain, he was no longer the same curious young man who had departed. He returned with not only books and instruments, but also a new worldview. Determined to apply what he had learned, he was well aware of the resistance he would face. This journey prepared him for the challenges and triumphs that lay ahead, solidifying his position as one of the most brilliant and controversial minds of his time. His genius not only fueled historical achievements, but also gave rise to legendary narratives. One of the most enduring tales is the theft of a forbidden manuscript, a story brimming with ambition, mystery, and betrayal. During his stay in Muslim Spain, Gerbert reportedly learned of a manuscript containing advanced knowledge in mathematics, astrology, and other sciences, guarded zealously by a local sage. Fascinated by the idea of accessing this intellectual treasure, Gerbert is said to have orchestrated a daring plan to obtain it, fueling one of the most persistent legends of his life. According to these accounts, Gerbert gained the sage's trust by presenting himself as a humble and eager apprentice. His quick learning ability and charismatic personality won the man over. However, according to legend, Gerbert's true intention was to steal the secret manuscript. During his visits, he identified where the book was kept and waited for the right moment to act. The story takes on an almost theatrical tone in describing the climax. With the help of the sage's daughter, who was supposedly persuaded by Gerbert's promises, he gained access to the book on a quiet night. However, the theft did not go unnoticed. The sage, said to possess astrological abilities, realized the book was missing and used his knowledge to track Gerbert down. It is said that Gerbert narrowly escaped, engaging in a tense pursuit. At a critical moment, he reportedly hung from a bridge, believing that positioning himself between the elements, earth, water, and air, would render him invisible to the sage's spells. This dramatic escape exemplifies the legendary character attributed to Gerbert, who even after fleeing, bore the weight of having obtained the manuscript through dubious means. Although there is no historical evidence to confirm the theft or the existence of the book, the story reflects medieval fascination with the boundary between legitimate and forbidden knowledge. By venturing into unknown intellectual territories, Gerbert became an easy target for fear and distrust. These narratives often extended beyond mundane accusations to the supernatural. In this context, another story gained traction: the legend of a pact with the devil, embodying medieval fears of excessive knowledge and the association of genius with dark forces. The tale suggests that after acquiring the forbidden manuscript, Gerbert summoned a demonic entity to unlock its secrets and gain unlimited wisdom. According to legend, this event took place on a full moon night in an isolated location. Because of course, every good medieval story needs a full moon, candles, and a mysterious pact, right? It's the full combo. Surrounded by mysterious symbols and black candles, Gerbert allegedly recited words in an ancient tongue to draw the demon's attention. When the entity appeared, it offered him a deal, his soul in exchange for intelligence and power. The legend adds a sinister detail to the pact, a clause stating that Gerbert would lose everything if he ever celebrated Mass in Jerusalem. After the supposed pact, Gerbert achieved extraordinary feats. He introduced the abacus, taught complex theories, and created inventions that seemed to defy human understanding. While many saw these advances as the product of his brilliance, others attributed them to an infernal alliance. Among the most striking accounts was his creation of a bronze head capable of answering questions, which many regarded as a demonic artifact. This narrative not only fueled distrust of Gerbert, but also highlighted the prejudices of his time. Genius was often viewed with suspicion, especially when associated with knowledge from foreign cultures like the Islamic world. By crossing these boundaries, Gerbert became a symbol of the tension between the pursuit of progress and the fear of the unknown. Although the legend of the pact with the devil is clearly fictional, it reflects the struggle between science and superstition. Gerbert, a man of faith and reason, was reinterpreted as a tragic figure, torn between his love of learning and accusations of transgression. His story demonstrates how intellectual advancement can be both celebrated and feared. Behind the legends, however, lie real and extraordinary achievements. Gerbert's scientific contributions not only shaped the intellectual development of medieval Europe, but also showcased his ability to blend ancient knowledge with practical innovation. He was responsible for introducing the abacus, revolutionizing how Europeans performed calculations. Gerbert's version of the abacus was more advanced than earlier iterations, incorporating Indo-Arabic numerals he had learned about in Muslim Spain. This tool enabled faster and more precise calculations, facilitating progress in fields such as commerce and engineering. Another instrument associated with Gerbert was the astrolabe, a device for measuring the positions of celestial bodies. With it, one could calculate the time of day or night, predict eclipses, and even navigate uncharted seas. For medieval standards, the astrolabe was almost magical, and its introduction to Europe is credited to Gerbert. He not only taught its use, but also wrote treatises explaining its operation, ensuring that his knowledge was passed down to future generations. In addition to the abacus and the astrolabe, Gerbert developed the monochord, an instrument used to study the principles of musical harmony. He believed music was directly linked to the laws of the universe, and that understanding it could lead to a deeper connection with the divine. For Gerbert, music was a way to translate celestial order into something humans could comprehend and experience. This perspective profoundly influenced medieval thought on the relationship between science and spirituality. One of the most controversial inventions attributed to Gerbert was the bronze head, a machine that answered questions with yes or no. While some believed it was powered by magic or demonic forces, it was likely a mechanical device far ahead of its time. The idea of creating machines to solve logical problems was revolutionary, anticipating, in some ways, the concepts of modern computing. However, to his contemporaries, this invention seemed otherworldly, reinforcing suspicions that Gerbert had ties to the occult. Gerbert's dedication to teaching was another cornerstone of his legacy. He not only mastered these technologies, but also made it a point to share them with his students. Many of those who studied under his guidance went on to become influential figures in politics and the church, spreading his impact throughout Europe. Gerbert believed education was key to progress, and that learning should be accessible to all, a radical idea for his time. Gerbert's scientific contributions not only challenged the limitations of his era, but also laid the groundwork for the intellectual revival that would come centuries later. Despite the dark legends surrounding him, he was a pioneer of rational thought, and one of the first to show that science and faith could coexist. His legacy lives on, even though many of his achievements are obscured by the myths that turned him into an almost mythical figure. This combination of intellectual innovation and the polarization it generated among his contemporaries culminated in his rise to the papal throne. His path to the papacy was as remarkable as it was controversial, marking a new chapter in his relationship with power and history. His intelligence and exceptional abilities earned him the respect of kings, emperors, and clergy, but also aroused envy and suspicion. He became a prominent figure in courts and monasteries, teaching future leaders and building a network of influential allies. The most important relationship he cultivated was with Emperor Otto III, who would ultimately be responsible for elevating him to the papacy. Otto saw in Gerbert not only a man of great intellect, but also a strategic partner in strengthening the alliance between the Empire and the Church. In 999, following the death of Pope Gregory V, Otto III used his influence to ensure Gerbert was elected the new pontiff. It was a symbolic and ambitious choice. Gerbert adopted the name Sylvester II in homage to Pope Sylvester I, who had collaborated with Emperor Constantine in founding the Christian Roman Empire. This gesture signaled that Otto and Sylvester had grand plans to recreate a unified Christian empire, governed in harmony between spiritual and temporal authority. It was a bold vision, but one fraught with challenges. Sylvester II's election was a milestone, but also the starting point for a series of difficulties. Many members of the Roman clergy distrusted a pope who did not come from traditional noble families and who was known for his scientific innovations. Gerbert faced open resistance and, in some cases, sabotage by opponents within the church. Furthermore, his association with Otto III made him politically vulnerable, as many feared he was more an ally of the empire than an independent leader of the church. Despite these obstacles, Sylvester II worked tirelessly to implement reforms in the church. He sought to improve clerical education, reduce corruption, and strengthen papal authority. His ideas often clashed with the interests of local leaders and powerful members of the ecclesiastical hierarchy. He also attempted to mediate conflicts between Christian kingdoms, proving himself a tireless advocate for unity and peace. These efforts, while admired by some, made him a target of criticism and conspiracies. Sylvester II's dream of building a new Christian empire began to unravel with the untimely death of Otto III in 1002. Without the support of his greatest ally, Gerbert found himself isolated in Rome, facing political intrigues and growing hostility from his opponents. His health began to deteriorate, and he realized that his time as pope was nearing its end. Nevertheless, he remained steadfast and continued to lead the church until his final days. Gerbert's rise to the papacy was an extraordinary achievement, but it was also fraught with challenges and tragedies. He reached the height of power in a time of great uncertainty, surrounded by enemies and a scientific legacy that few understood. Although his vision of a unified Christian empire was never realized, he left a lasting mark on church history and collective memory as one of the most intriguing and enigmatic popes of all time. Among the legends associated with Sylvester II, the diabolical clause is one of the most intriguing. The story claims that when sealing his alleged pact with the devil, Gerbert was given a warning. He would enjoy wisdom and success, but lose everything if he ever celebrated Mass in Jerusalem. Although it seemed a simple condition to avoid, it turned out to be a treacherous trap that sealed his fate in an unexpected way. During his papacy, Gerbert avoided any possibility of traveling to the Holy Land. However, the legend suggests that fate deceived him cruelly. In Rome, there was a church called Santa Croce in Jerusalem, dedicated to the relics of the cross and considered a symbol of the Holy City. By celebrating Mass there, Gerbert supposedly broke the clause of his pact inadvertently. The popular narrative describes this moment with dramatic details. During the ceremony, Gerbert is said to have suddenly realized where he was and the fatal mistake he had made. Some versions claim he fell gravely ill immediately after the Mass, while others suggest demonic figures appeared to claim his soul. The association between this event and his sudden death fueled suspicions and solidified his reputation as the Wizard Pope. Although this story is evidently fictitious, it illustrates how medieval fears shaped perceptions of innovative figures. Gerbert, with his intelligence and daring, became an ambiguous symbol, admired for his achievements and feared for his supposed transgressions of the boundaries imposed by faith. The legend of the diabolical clause not only reflects fascination with supernatural stories, but also serves as a warning against the dangers of excessive ambition. In life, Gerbert sought to reconcile science and spirituality, but in collective imagination, he became an example of the price paid for challenging the unknown. The death of Sylvester II in 1003 was shrouded in mystery, further feeding the legends that already surrounded him. The accounts of his final days vary greatly between historical records and popular narratives. What we know for certain is that his health began to deteriorate rapidly after he celebrated the infamous Mass at the Church of Santa Croce in Jerusalem and Rome. This coincidence sparked speculation that he had violated the demonic pact he was rumored to have made, sealing his fate. One of the most dramatic versions claims that during the Mass, Sylvester suddenly realized he was in the Jerusalem mentioned in the clause of his pact. It is said that, at the end of the ceremony, the devil appeared amidst the congregation, accompanied by demons who dragged his soul straight to hell with claws and fangs. Although this story is obviously fantastical, its dissemination helped solidify the image of Sylvester as a tragic and doomed character. Other accounts, less supernatural in nature, suggest that Sylvester fell gravely ill shortly after the Mass, succumbing to a high and debilitating fever. He was reportedly rushed to his quarters, where he remained in a terminal state for several days. During this time, he is said to have reflected on his life and issued strange instructions for the treatment of his body after death. Imagine this. The guy is on his deathbed and makes a request that's basically, "Dismember me afterward just to be sure." Pretty macabre, but totally in line with his legendary aura. Some say he asked to be dismembered, believing this could thwart the devil and prevent his soul from being claimed. Even more intriguing is the inscription on his tomb, located in the Basilica of St. John Lateran in Rome. It reads, "This place will yield to the sound of the last trumpet, and the limbs of the buried Sylvester too will rise." For some, this was merely a reference to the final judgment, but many interpreted it as a supernatural warning. Later legends claimed that Sylvester's bones began to creak whenever a pope was about to die, turning his tomb into a site of ominous omens. Despite these stories, Sylvester's death was likely caused by a common illness such as malaria, which was endemic to Rome at the time. His passing, however, coincided with a period of instability for the Church and the Empire, reinforcing the idea that his death was linked to greater forces. The absence of his greatest ally, Emperor Otto III, who had died the previous year, left Sylvester politically isolated and vulnerable to conspiracies. Sylvester II's death marked the end of a life filled with extraordinary accomplishments and enduring controversies. To his admirers, he was a man of science and faith who sought to bring light to an age of darkness. To his detractors, he was a necromancer who dared to challenge God. His life and death reflect the eternal conflict between the pursuit of knowledge and the fear of the unknown, a theme that continues to resonate throughout history. The legacy of Sylvester II is a blend of fact and myth, interwoven to create an almost mythical figure. It's the kind of story where you're never sure where the truth ends and the exaggeration begins. But that's exactly what makes it so fascinating. He was one of the greatest intellectuals of his time, introducing advanced scientific concepts and promoting education in a Europe still recovering from the fall of the Roman Empire. At the same time, the legends of demonic pacts and necromancy turned him into a controversial figure, embodying both genius and the peril of exceeding the boundaries of medieval society. Among his most notable achievements was the introduction of instruments like the abacus and the astrolabe to Christian Europe. These tools helped revolutionize mathematics, astronomy, and navigation, laying the groundwork for advances that would come centuries later. Additionally, he was one of the first to teach the theory of celestial spheres, connecting astronomical knowledge to the divine. For Gerbert, learning was not just practical but a way to understand the celestial order and God's creation. However, the same innovations that made him famous also fueled suspicion. His contemporaries, unable to grasp the depth of his knowledge, began attributing his abilities to supernatural forces. The idea that Sylvester had made a pact with the devil became a convenient explanation for his accomplishments. His inventions, such as the bronze head that answered questions, were seen as demonic works, reinforcing his image as a wizard pope. These stories were perpetuated by medieval and Renaissance writers, who used Sylvester II as an example of the dangers of ambition. For them, he symbolized what happened when someone sought too much knowledge or defied divine authority. This negative portrayal was widely exploited by religious reformers and critics of the Church, who saw Sylvester as a symbol of corruption and decadence. However, modern historians recognize Sylvester II as one of the brightest minds of his time. He represents a moment when Europe began reopening its doors to learning and innovations brought from the Islamic world. His work as an educator, scientist, and spiritual leader left a profound impact, though often overshadowed by the myths surrounding him. The legacy of Sylvester II is a fascinating intertwining of historical achievements and enduring myths. As one of the brightest minds of his time, he played a vital role in introducing scientific and technological knowledge that helped shape the future of medieval Europe, paving the way for the Renaissance. His dedication to learning and education transcended the limitations of his time, demonstrating that science and spirituality can walk hand in hand. However, Gerbert's genius also stirred fears and prejudices that shaped his image over the centuries. The legends of demonic pacts and mysterious inventions reflect not only fascination, but also the apprehension his intellectual boldness inspired. These narratives, though fictional, are a powerful testament to the tension between the advancement of knowledge and the boundaries imposed by superstition and tradition. Sylvester too remains an ambiguous symbol, a visionary who defied his era and, at the same time, a figure cloaked in mystery. His story reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge requires courage and resilience, especially in times of darkness. Through his achievements and the lasting impact of his ideas, Gerbert d'Aurillac not only left his mark on history, but also inspired generations to follow the path of reason and progress, even in the face of the most daunting challenges. Gerbert d'Aurillac, or Sylvester II, was more than just a pope or a scholar. He was a symbol of human ambition and the dangers of challenging the limits imposed by ignorance and fear. Between real accomplishments and dark legends, his story reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge demands courage, and that sometimes, those who illuminate the path are also the ones who fear the shadows around them the most. This story is just one piece, and one day, we might see the whole puzzle. If this made you think, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. It helps the channel grow. And share it, because more voices mean more discoveries. If you've made it this far, it's because something in this mystery captivated you. But I bet you haven't seen everything yet. Click on the next videos now to continue your journey into the unknown. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe so you don't miss the next secrets I'm about to reveal. But be careful, once you step inside, there's no turning back.